The third tactic is to invoke the mystery of racism, to say these people are racists, and then to connect any discussion about race or race differences to this mystery of racism. The success of this tactic can be seen in how the schlock of God, who is a hereditarian now, or a race realist, or whatever you want to call it, thinks he's not, because he doesn't believe in racial superiority. Okay? See that? Superiority. Superiority is a term injected by the egalitarians. Supremacism is a word injected by the egalitarians, not by the hereditarians. Words like bigotry and prejudice are used by hereditarians, are used by egalitarians, not hereditarians, all right? They're all invocations of the mystery of racism.
There isn't a big mystery here to racism. Yes, you are racist and bigots, all right? You're insisting that there is a physical, intellectual limitation to a group of people that automatically makes them less than someone else based on skin color. Now, no matter how you slice it, that's fucking racism. The same way that Christians for generations were racist against Jews, and it was part of that that laid the groundwork for the Nazis' ability to carry out the final solution, which I know you don't believe in, but I will address that in my coming series on the Holocaust, you silly little man.
The fourth tactic is to draw parallels to creationism. And this is a very curious thing to do, since racial egalitarianism, it goes against Darwin's views on race, Charles Darwin's views on race, okay? And they are denying evolutionary differences between humans. They are denying evolution to a certain extent. They're denying evolution in the brain in terms of differences between races, right? It's a very specific denial of evolution. In fact, let me quote some eminent egalitarian anthropologists on this. There's been no biological change in humans in 40,000 or 50,000 years. Everything we call culture and civilization, we've built with the same body and brain. Stephen Jay Gould.
Fringe, Stephen Jay Gould was a paleontologist, not an anthropologist. I hope you do know the difference between the two. More importantly, let's look at this in terms of biology for a moment. You're claiming right now, according to you, that there are specific differences in the brains of different so-called races. What differences? Now, on the screen in front of you right now is a picture of your average brain. All the regions, everything that you see within those regions are the same. In other words, there's no appreciable difference in them morphologically speaking. None whatsoever. Absolutely nothing. There is nothing to be found in difference in this way. Now, Tobias, who is cited by Rushton, of course he cites him erroneously, actually found the exact same thing when he did the autopsies on all those brains. He discovered the exact same thing. It was very, very clear evidence. The brain structurally between humans is similar in every single way. And this is what this picture is showing right now. Anterior speech area, Broca's area. Up there at the top, primary motor area, primary sensory area, secondary motor area, posterior speech area, Wernicke's area, secondary visual area. Now, in here, when you have somebody who gets damage to the Broca's area, you have Broca's aphasia. It sounds like word salad. They can't put the letters together in an appropriate way. Back here in Wernicke's region, you can, in fact, make the words sound clear and tangible, you can understand, but then it can't be put in the right word order, so it sounds like gibberish. Secondary auditory area, primary visual area, secondary visual area. All this exists in the brains of every single human being on the planet. Barring the natural variation in size, 1 to 2,000, all human beings, there is no appreciable difference. Where is the difference coming from, Fringe? Where in these areas? And I've had this discussion with you once before. Where in the structure of the brain are these deficiencies coming from? What is different about the prefrontal cortex in a black person's brain than in a white person's? You said it was larger. Larger is better. That means they have more control over their emotions. The brake system inside the brain should be better. By your own logic, this is what you're saying. And that anyone with a bigger brain should automatically be smarter, but that's not exactly what we see now, is it? No, not. It isn't. Now, let's look at what your old boy Rushton himself has said. And I quote, "Among individuals, intelligence is related to brain size. This has been documented in about 24 studies using magnetic resonance imaging to measure brain volume." Now, this is curious to me because why would you be using a functional MRI to measure brain volume? Usually when you're doing fMRI data, you're checking the functions of the brain itself. And that functional MRI data has shown that there is no difference between people and the workings of their brain. All the areas light up just as they should. That's a huge difference here. If there was something in the brain that wasn't working properly, if it wasn't firing correctly, if there was a deficit in the brain, which can be told by functional MRI data, we would see it in the imaging. But we don't. So where is this coming from? Why do you think they're comparing you with a creationist? You're telling us that there's behavior exhibited in these different races, but then you can't tell us where it comes from, which parts of the brain are not functioning as they should be, and why these deficits exist genetically. You can't tell us any of this. You're just telling us to take it on faith. That's what a creationist does. That's why they're calling you that. And this is why your IQ tests don't measure genetics. But we'll get to that.
Moreover, people who are prone to just regurgitate what they are told are more likely to be in the egalitarian camp, since that is the status quo. That's what I was told as I was a kid. The school curriculums are all egalitarian. The mindless bigots, the people who just repeat whatever they're told, are going to repeat the dominant positions of society, not some fringe positions. Now, that doesn't necessarily make the people who have their own ideas or fringe positions necessarily correct, but to call them bigots, well, that's just inane. Furthermore, egalitarians prejudge all races to be the same in the brain on aggregate. Right? This is a prejudgment. The egalitarian prejudice was ingrained in childhood, and later it is now being rationalized as an adult, and you are seeing that rationalization process right before your eyes.
Wait, shouldn't the black girl have the knife?
The fifth tactic is the use of two major fallacies, Lewontin's fallacy and the continuum fallacy. With Lewontin's fallacy, they argue that the greater variation within than between races is evidence that the races don't matter. When it is pointed out that dog breeds also have more variation within than between dog breeds, the egalitarian will then move the goalposts and argue that domestic dog breeds don't count because domesticated dogs were selectively bred and thus will show greater phenotypical diversity for a given amount of genotypic variation.
Okay, don't like dogs. How about ligers? The liger is a result of breeding a male lion with a female tigress. Now, this all looks well and good, and from the pictures you can see this is a colossal animal. But there are huge problems associated with this animal. One, they suffer from endless health problems, from arthritis, vision problems, all kinds of genetic diseases are associated with it. It's an example of something that would never survive in nature, fringe. Most dog breeds wouldn't survive in nature very often either. Be they, small, large, whatever. They've become so dependent on us that they need us to survive. There's certainly not something like Canis lupus, the common gray wolf, Canis latrans, the coyote. These are creatures that have evolved, and they look very different than most modern dogs, but they've evolved naturally. Dogs, ligers, most modern stock animals, they were bred. And they have all kinds of accompanying problems. Now, Sophia already tried to tell you this. Natural selection in action would not allow these animals to survive very long. That's just the way that it goes. Survival of the fittest. Now you're denying evolution. But what else is new? This isn't moving the goalposts. You want to talk about moving the goalposts. We'll get to that here in a second. Because you sons of bitches move these goalposts all the time. Especially when it comes to your end-all be-all, the IQ test, which actually doesn't really measure anything of importance, it turns out. It only measures cultural knowledge, and it has huge drawbacks to demonstrate anything genetically.